On February 1st, Skywest Fairchild Metroliner Flight 5569 made several flights during the day beginning in Palm Springs, California. It had flown to cities within California, including Inyokern and Fresno, with stops in Los Angeles earlier in the day. The Skywest flight was preparing to leave Los Angeles International Airport, or LAX, to fly to Palmdale, California at approximately 1800 hours. The second aircraft, a USAir Boeing 737 Flight 1493, originated its first flight in Syracuse, New York, with destinations to Washington, D.C. and Columbus, Ohio. The aircraft took off from Columbus, Ohio at 13:07 hours local time en route to Los Angeles, California, with 89 passengers, 4 flight attendants, and 2 flight crew members. Official sunset for the Los Angeles area occurred at 17:23, and the sky was dark on the horizon. The USAir 737 was cleared to follow a standard descent procedure by the TRACON Arrival Radar Controller and told to intercept the runway 24 right Instrument Landing System localizer and maintain 10,000 feet. Around 1758 hours, the Skywest Metroliner began taxiing from Terminal 6, Gate 32 to runway 24 left. A minute later, the Arrival Radar Controller asked Flight 1493 if the airport was in sight, to which the crew responded affirmatively. The controller cleared the 737 for a visual approach to runway 24 left and asked the aircraft to stay above 8,000 feet until they crossed the navigation point Denay, which is approximately 23 miles from the runway. The USAir crew confirmed the instruction, but after some internal discussion, reconfirmed the request to be sure they understood correctly. Meanwhile, on the ground at LAX, the Skywest Metroliner advised the ground controller that they were on the taxiway behind an Aeromexico airplane. Ground control advised them to hold short, as the Aeromexico aircraft would be moving soon. He then further instructed Flight 5569 that when they were able to turn right at the 45 transition point, they should, and then taxi to runway 24 left. The Skywest crew acknowledged the instructions given by ground control. The Arrival Radar Controller initiated a transfer of controller responsibility for Flight 1493 to the LAX tower or local controller. He asked that the crew contact the Los Angeles Tower when they reach the navigation point Roman, which is approximately 6 miles from runway 24 left. Similarly, Flight 5569 initiated communications with local control in the LAX Tower and requested takeoff from their hold point at the 45 transition point on runway 24 left. The tower controller responded to the crew that they should taxi up to and hold short of 24 left. The airplane crew responded, acknowledging that they would hold short. At this point, the tower controller directed a Wings West Metroliner Flight 5006 to taxi across runway 24 left and to contact ground control when they were off the runway. When contact wasn't made, the controller repeated the statement to Flight 5006. While the controller was trying to determine why the Wings West Metroliner wasn't responding, Flight 1493 notified the controller that they were inside of the Roman intersection, but the message was never acknowledged by the controller. The controller called Flight 5006 again with no response. The controller then directed Skywest to taxi into position and hold on runway 24 left while traffic crossed downfield. The Flight 5569 crew acknowledged the hold instruction. The controller tried again to contact Flight 5006 without response. At 18:05, the Wings West crew determined the correct radio frequency for the tower, and the local controller determined that they were back on the correct frequency. The controller then directed the aircraft to taxi across runway 24 left and to contact ground control when off the runway. A few seconds later, Flight 1493 notified the controller of their approach, while Flight 5569 continued to hold for a takeoff clearance in the center of runway 24 left at the intersection with taxiway 45. The controller then cleared Flight 1493 to land on runway 24 left at 18:05:51, and the USAir crew acknowledged the clearance. Moments later, USAir Metroliner Flight 5072 contacted the controller stating that they were ready for takeoff. The controller realized that a flight progress strip for the USAir Flight was missing and began looking for the aircraft's information. The controller queried the area supervisor and found the strip misfiled in the clearance delivery position as a yet-to-be-delivered departure clearance, even though the clearance had already been issued. The first officer of Flight 1493 was flying the approach and noted nothing unusual about the runway lights nor the overall landing environment. There were no concerns about the centerline, runway lighting, or runway edge lights, nor did the flight crew see any airplanes or other distractions while landing. The collision between the landing 737 and the holding Metroliner occurred at approximately 1807. Initial impact occurred simultaneously with the 737's nose wheel contact with the runway. There was an explosion and fire upon impact. The two airplanes slid to the left side of the runway into an unoccupied fire station building. All 12 passengers and crew aboard the Metroliner were fatally injured. 22 of the 89 passengers and crew on the 737 were killed.